What if the biggest barrier to better leadership, stronger relationships, and real collaboration is not outside of us, it's inside our own thinking? And what if, by changing how we see others, we could unlock a completely new level of human connection, innovation, and growth? And especially in this rapidly changing world, which is shaped by AI. In the following conversation, you'll discover a powerful relational lens on work, life, and leadership, and that can transform how we lead, cooperate, and live together. Welcome to another wonderful conversation about how we can have a better impact in the world and live our true self and have, a better quality of life. But before we begin, a little personal background on why this dialogue matters so much to me. It was more than 25 years ago in the United States. I did a workshop there, and afterwards someone came and handed me a book, and this changed my life. And the title, Leadership and Self-Deception. Title said, author is Arbinger Institute, but actually that original version was written by Jim Ferrell. And the book revealed how we unknowingly deceive ourselves. We trick ourselves. We sit in the box and treat people easily as objects instead of human beings. And we are sabotaging our own success, our own quality of life, without realizing it. I worked with Jim Ferrell then for years. I made a contact with him, I met him in person, and the first real life meeting was September 11, the famous 9/11, 2001. We met in the hotel lobby that afternoon and watched the Twin Towers fall. The next morning was the workshop. Jim opened the leadership workshop with a thought that deeply challenged us. Even those we see as enemy may believe they are doing the right thing. He said, wow, we were more in rage, we were more in sadness, in pain, and he just stand there relaxed and said, okay, but we need to understand, can you see that they are other believed doing the right thing? I was not there in the moccasins of the others, so that moment deeply shaped my work in leadership and coaching. And after now a long time of this work, Jim did around the planet, wrote a lot of books, deep dive, he wrote a new one. And even if I couldn't imagine that at that time, he went a level deeper. And his new book is You and We. He shows that everything meaningful happens not in an isolated individual, but in the space between us. It's in the between, in relation. This dialogue, I really recommend listen to it. It takes a little bit longer than usual, but listen to it maybe even a couple of times. And joining in this dialogue is Elle. She is a Canadian actress whose curiosity explores the intersection of embodiment, human connection, and well-being. And she's grounded in somatic and movement-based training with hands-on creative experience on film set, and she brings an embodied perspective to story and character. So I was so grateful that she joined, because I'm more the intellectual guy, the concept guy, but she is so much more from the heart, so much more emotional intelligence and connecting from the soul. And she's exploring how narrative and connection reshape how we experience ourselves in this world. So together we explore what it truly means to move from you versus me to you and we. And if you want to better understand relationship leadership and the future of human collaboration, this conversation is for you. Welcome to our dialogue with Jim Ferrell. So, welcome to this, I expect, wonderful conversation because it's about really what is very important for humans and to have different relationship. Everything is a relation. And I'm very happy, as I said before in the intro, that I have the privilege to meet Jim after 20 years again. And it was so interesting. The first live meeting was 9/11. We were in a hotel
That's
bar.
right.
In a hotel bar, and you came in, and we just were staring at the TVs, and everybody was in shock somehow.
Yeah.
And the next morning, when you started the workshop with the executive team, you, I guess, surprised, somehow maybe shocked everybody with the idea of saying, whatever happened, but I guess we all should be aware, they thought they are right.
Yeah.
Do the right thing.
Right.
So, and then it started after reading your book, that really, this guy can challenge us, seeing the world a little bit different. Not that we love those things, but have a different attitude to so many things.
Yeah.
And this we want to explore a little bit deeper, that we all can raise to a different level to living together.
Right.
And I got a sentence from you, from the book, or I guess from another interview, where you said, we are in the middle of an experiment. So we are not the end. Yeah? So where are we coming from? Where are we going? And where are we now in the middle?
Just small questions today. Exactly.
And just wanted to make sure, Elle, welcome as well. And as I said also in the intro before, we had a wonderful conversations before, and I called it what I experienced the first time is being in the pursuit of truth. 2-3 hours. We never have the feeling we influence or want to influence or want to change something. So it's a wonderful experience that this is possible. So I'm looking forward to very.
Yeah, I am as well. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah. Yeah.
So this book, with me?
This book, You and We, it's about relations. And so just to catch everybody up, how is it that you're defining relation?
So I use relation and relationships differently. So let me answer that question now, sort of by responding to what I mean in both of those cases. So relation, for me, relation is just a state of being. We are in relation. It's inescapable. It's kind of like gravity. It's just the law we live within. Everything's in relation. Nothing stands on its own. Inside of that, relational reality, we can develop relationships with people, right? We can spend time, we can be in conversation, and we can have relationships of various kinds of qualities. And I talk about in You and We sort of different levels of kinds of relationship we can get in as well. But so, and we do a lot of work. My company, it's called Withy Leadership. We use another word too sometimes that's helpful in organizational space. We use the word connectivity, because that sort of translates, everyone gets intuitively, oh, you know what, if we're in sort of any kind of a social context, how connected we are is really important, right? We perform better together if we're more highly connected. So that's sort of I use that sort of as a it's almost an in-between word. Relation is just it's just reality. We can have relationships with various people, and then kind of we're always in the middle of how connected are we with each other. Some people we might be highly connected with, others really not so much, and our connections might actually be quite antagonistic for that matter.
And so when there is antagonizing connections, this was my predominant question throughout the book. How do we get from what you call breaking relationships and blocking relationships to something that's expanding or compounding?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, that's the big question. I mean, that really is what I wrote the book too. So, I wrote You and We in 4 parts, and I kind of in part 1 take on a paradigm shift, which is where we really live inside of an individualistic kind of paradigm in the West in particular. I mean, we don't realize it. It's the air we breathe. So we're not actually thinking relationally. And so I kind of in part 1, we dive into that. I get into what I call 4 laws of relation, kind of wake us up to the reality that just is, but we're not actually noticing it. And then in part 2, it's like, okay, so how can we start thinking that way? How can we start thinking relationally? How's that differ from thinking individualistically? And then by part 3, it's like, okay, then, so how do we actually get in connection, right? So I think that, boy, there's so much I could say in response to that, Elle. We divide, so if it's the case that relation is reality, then the divisions between us are divisions of our own creation. It's not like the divisions themselves are features of reality. We're bringing the divisions ourselves. And when you when you really dive into it, like, well, then what is that? What are these divisions? Well, the divisions, when you get right down to it, is there are heads. Our heads divide us from each other. We get all in our heads, separated from each other, and inside of our own minds we have our own stories. I'll have a story about you, I'll have a story about Wolfgang. And we can sort of feel like we kind of have other people figured out, etc. But these are our stories. And so becoming aware that that's what's going on, how we get caught actually inside of our own narratives, and don't realize that that's what's happening, and how to break free from that. And every other human being actually is the opportunity for that. Because, I mean, here you are, Elle, you're a real live human being. You're not just a story. You're not a story at all. I mean, here you are. And how can I break free from that, just the story of Elle, to actually being connection? And that requires me stepping outside of myself, right? And allowing you to invite me out. And in part 3 of the book, I get into the philosophy of a thinker I just love. His name's Martin Buber, just incredible body of work. And I think his work is really helpful about how we actually can escape that space and meet in the between, right? Because it's not just me. If we're in a relationship, it's like there's me, there's you, but there's actually the thing between us, right? There's a third party here that we're never talking about, that we're both part of. You can't just reduce our experience to what's in my head and what's in your head. It's actually much bigger than that. And so to get out in between, that's where everything comes alive, right?
There was a surprise about that is maybe a little bit advantage in the German language, because this in between, we say really relationship is kind of in between. Zwischenmenschliche Beziehung means between humans relation. That is always. It's directly in the wording.
It's in the language,
but the other part is also the awareness. Yeah, where are you? Certain Americans really say, okay, they are maybe individual. If you go on spiral dynamics or whatever, it says, okay, we're now on the orange level and everything needs to be the rugged individual. On the other side, you have then Ken Wilber's comes with the integral theory, or spiral dynamics comes from the US. So we are disconnected. And you point out the German du sie, and you as American now say, wow, this is great. And what happens in Germany? Oh, America has only one word, you. So we skip the sie now. Everybody, no respect anymore. We do exactly the opposite. It is really interesting to see that the awareness of these in between is not there. Even if you say entrepreneur, entre is French. In between. Entreprendre, take something out of the invisible and make it material.
Yeah.
That is what the entrepreneur is doing.
Yeah. That's fascinating. It sure is. Yeah. You know,
so how we make people more aware or get the connection.
Well, you know,
what they do.
So I think one of the challenges is that, and it's one of the reasons why we get stuck in very individualistic thinking, is it's hard to see the between. You know, it's sort of like I kind of have my own experience of what's happening in here. I'm making guesses about what's happening over there, but we don't have a way to sort of actually. In German, it sounds like there are ways to actually speak about the between. It's built into the language in ways that in English perhaps it's not, and so we're missing it. So part of what I've done, you know, in with my company, with leadership, and I write about in You and We, is to give people ways to begin to see the between, actually even to quantify the between.
Yeah.
And so in organizations, I mean, one of the things that means is this, and it's really incredible what happens with all of our clients. But let's say we're a 3-person company, or let's say we each lead 3 divisions in the company. Okay. And we're on the executive team together. Well, okay. Normally we're managing the company by, you know, Elle's got her part of the company. Okay. How's that going? Where are you on your KPIs? You know, Wolfgang, how about you? How about me? And we're all sort of doing that, and we're cooperating with each other. But in fact, what's actually happening, where everything is happening, is actually in the space between. It's not in these sort of hermetically sealed off pieces. It's in the interactions inside of Elle's team, inside of your team, between my team and your teams.
Yeah.
It's in the space. So if you think of an org chart, you know, we pay attention to all the boxes on the chart, but we're not paying attention to all the space on the chart, which is actually where everything happens. So, so we have a way to illuminate that space, to quantify what's happening. So one of the ways we do that, we have multiple ways, but one of the ways we do that is that we teach people about what we call these levels of connectivity or levels of relation. And it gives people a lens to be able to see, oh, wait a second, I know that. I feel that here. So for example, in You and We, I go through these 5 levels. I write about the lowest level is what I call division, where we're getting in each other's way. I'm making Elle's life harder at work, or outside of work for that matter, if it's in a personal life situation. Or next level up, we call subtraction. And subtraction, I'm not obstructing Elle or you anymore, Wolfgang, but I'm resisting you, right? So that can look a lot of ways. It might mean that I ignore what you say, I ignore your suggestions. It might mean
just
that
have the chart directly.
Yeah, there's the chart. I might work around you, you know, build all these workarounds. These are all sort of resistant subtraction level sort of strategies. Then the next level up I call addition. And at addition, we're showing up doing our work. We're not getting in each other's way anymore, not resisting each other. But we're just we're not getting any relational oomph out of it either, because we're just showing up doing our own things. Very siloed kind of approach. And then next level after that, we call multiplication, which now we're collaborating and cooperating. That's fantastic. And there are billions of dollars spent every year trying to get companies to that level. But there's a level beyond that. And that's really the big payoff level. And now that's really the question you were asking about earlier. How do you get to that level, which is what I call compounding, where you're actually breaking through the barriers of this sort of the illusions of separateness that we've erected around ourselves, and I
think it's the main point.
Deeply.
Yeah.
What's that?
What you said, the illusion of the separateness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This is, I think, so much more important to focus on that, because just simply seeing, I guess a lot of people see it. Well, I was impressed with your book first, the leadership, the self-deception, and this box thinking. We know it, what we're doing. But then, or what you say, behavior, object, or people, we know exactly. I put the newspaper on the seat. We see everything.
Yeah.
But we can't escape, and we don't realize how stupid we are, that we're in the box working against us. So you have the special gift for me to make us aware let's say, see the differences, to reflect this to us and review charts, because we see that something is not working. Or if I can ask maybe what Elle says, what we can see when we see a movie or a play or whatever, we see that they are not really connecting.
Yeah. Yeah, you can feel that
but
too.
we
Yeah,
don't know what to do, and we
don't know what to do about it.
Within the illusion to be right and fighting, and I guess the actor needs also to learn to open up and make it somehow happen. Yeah?
You know, I just before we got on this call, I just got off another call with the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so it was a tax issue. And so this is going to seem, why are we talking about the IRS now? Well, I'll connect the dots here. So, so we paid, my wife and I, we paid our taxes, of course, last year. But the IRS, we started to get notices that they're still waiting on our taxes. So we've now got a back tax bill, and we're stacking up these penalties on top of it. Like, what are you talking about? We paid our taxes. So we've gone back and forth with the IRS, and still this is happening. So I called the IRS this morning, and after quite a long wait, got connected to an agent who ended up being an incredibly helpful person. At the start, it was very kind of transactional and all of that, but we got through it, and there just ended up being this real connection with this human being. And she dove in, and she's sorting things out, and she figured out what's wrong and why it's happening, and they're fixing it now. And then she gave me like direct line access. Here's my direct number. You can, and here's another number, and things that you never get from a bureaucracy like the IRS. And then we started talking about, I asked her where she's from, where she lives. She says, I'm from New York. But then she says Bills country, meaning the Buffalo Bills football team. And then she says, I'm sure glad that the Seahawks won over the weekend. So obviously doesn't like the New England Patriots much. Well, I'm from Seattle. So I'm like, yes, that's my team. So we're in this conversation. And what started as this transactional back and forth, I've got a problem, I need you to fix it, ended up somewhere in the middle of that morphing into a real human experience together. And this, I'll call her Ms. H, to shorten her last name. I mean, I feel like I've got a friend over in the IRS, a real person over in the IRS. And I think at least for myself, I think a lot of the times we can live our lives, whether they're our personal lives or our social lives or our work lives, sort of at the beginning of that conversation, kind of in this very transactional surface kind of way, rather than at the end of the conversation, where there's real depth, there's real connection, there's real exchange, there's real encounter. We're bursted beyond kind of all the, sort of the surface levels.
Most of the time it happens like this, but we live also mostly in a kind of survival state, wherever it comes from, our pain, emotion, that's why we go.
Yeah.
And we start, and I want something. But isn't it, when we are in this, let's say, label it wrong state, separate state, we are, for the brain waves, we need to go on the beta, we need to limit ourselves. And the moment you talk different, you're in a different frequency, you're in a different brain, at least more alpha. And when we think of hard math or whatever, all these experiments, what's it called in English? Coherence. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if we would start a meeting, everybody goes before we do it in coherence, and some suggest it for business meetings as well.
Yeah.
Then it's different. And I believe you have so many experience with your companies. When they understood that, they start every meeting different.
For sure. Yeah, you can. Yeah, your meetings can get way more meaningful right from the beginning if we're there authentically, And partly that means, what I dive into in you and we, and which is a massively important topic, at least in the U.S. right now. I'd say probably worldwide, is that there's actually two sort of forces that are, two realities, I'll put them, that there's a tension between them. One is people are more comfortable gathering with their own Yeah, the word homophily is a word for that. We gather with people like ourselves, whether they think like us, look like us, etc. But growth actually happens through coming in contact with difference. There's no growth in sameness. We just stay the same, whether it's my own thoughts in my head or the thoughts with everyone else who thinks the same thoughts like I have in my head. We just stay the same, which on the one hand is comfortable. So we gather there. On the other hand, there is no growth. So in a business context, that's massively important. You have to create a space where difference can show up and difference can be encouraged and rewarded even. So in fact, I get a little bit into you and we in the really fascinating work of Pierre Teilhard Desjardins, who was a French paleontologist and Catholic priest. He was dual-hatted professionally and spiritually, but his work's fascinating because he studied, evolution, which put him at odds with the church at his time. But what he discovered was this pattern. And difference is at the center of all growth based on this pattern. He said there's three at every level, whether you're talking about inorganic matter to bits of organic life to more complex life, all the way to human thought. Growth always happens through a three-part process. And that parts are, number one, you have to have differences that can press against each other. So if we were just in infinite space and different kinds of atoms never pressed against each other, they just stay at what they are forever. You have to have sort of this finite space where now we start to compress against each other. When we do that, differences compress. Then if some of those differences actually converge, so they hold on to their differences, but hold on to each other while they're doing that, then you have the emergence of higher orders of development. So it's compress, converge, emerge. And that's in a business setting. In any social setting, it's the case. But in a business setting, certainly, that's what we need to figure out how to promote and reward. And it's harder to do that for people now in more remote workplaces because the compressed side has been broken a little bit, at least outside of your normal teams. I mean, we compress with our own teams. We get on our Zoom calls, but you're not meeting at the coffee machine anymore in the hall. All those sorts of informal kind of meetups aren't happening as much. And so in order to get cross-functional compression, you have to be mindful about that and realize you have to design for it, because we don't grow without it. We don't innovate without differences coming together. You'll remember in the book, I use the metaphor of water to make this point. So you have hydrogen atoms and oxygen atoms, which are both great. You can be hydrogen and oxygen. I mean, that the world needs both. But if we come together, if the two of you, let's say, are hydrogen and I'm oxygen atom, and we come and we bring our differences, but we bind to each other, in this case chemically, but we bind to each other while maintaining our difference, then you get the emergence of the entirely new water that none of us could dream up on our own. It's just a different order of thing altogether. And so to me, that's the magic, is how do you make water? And if water is what we need to make, and none of us can make it alone. And it turns out that the keys to making water in many cases are the very people we don't want anything to do with, because the very places we're feeling the difference, right? We resist them. So we gather to our own, and we're fighting the arc of the universe in terms of growth. Whenever we do that, it's natural, but it's also.
Is it really natural? Are you? I have no kids, but so far I experienced kids. They were curious. They test everything. They take everything in the mouth. They need to open up and think. So I guess we take this curiosity away. And in business, it is a kind of law nearly that the super cash cow is rarely what you start the business about. It always comes later, second. Or if you look at Apple, it is not the main computer, it's not the big cash cow. Elon Musk or whatever, if you start a Tesla, Facebook, you can go everywhere. And today they make a big money with clouds. You never know in the beginning.
Yeah, that's right.
Only with those, and that is it's a question, which kind of client or situation brings them to you? Because I got in the past a lot of people it's not working anymore, I'm losing, and so I had the image, I can help them to make the profit again. But is it not now with your image, there are more and more people coming? I see there is a next level. You can help us maybe to go to the next level, or is it more, we need help?
Well, I mean, I think it's a mix out there. I mean, there's some leaders that sort of always looking for help, and they realize they want to keep growing, and they realize that might mean they need to become uncomfortable in some ways, not just get stuck where they are. But others, and success is a funny thing. I was with one of the a company in the world. Everyone on the planet knows this company. And we started working with them years ago, but they had been outflanked by two competitors at the time, which everyone in the world knows those two competitors too. And it was an existential time for them. They were forced to make some massive decisions because they would cease to exist. They had tons of cash, so they could write it out for years. But even so, in terms of relevance, they were facing an existential crisis. Now, they made bold moves, really bold moves, and now, I mean, they've pivoted back and they're an absolute juggernaut. But sometimes I think, market forces, potentially really negative things all of a sudden can wake people up and say, wait a second, we got comfortable in our success. It's so easy to double down on what's been successful in the past. It's the old story. But there's always going to be someone who comes around the one side, start to do something a little bit different or better, and innovates and forces you, if you're paying attention, to rethink things. That's a hard transition for people to make who have been successful. People who are trying to be successful, companies that are new, they're out there grinding and taking risks. But the big behemoths who've had a lot of success, they can get stuck. Now, there's another problem though too, because the challenge today, one of the challenges is there's such what becomes possible at scale is so massive, especially in tech, that you can essentially freeze out a lot of competitors simply because you have so much, you have so many resources and all those things that you lose out on the people being able to really compete against you. And that's a real loss for society. I mean, that's why, antitrust laws and whatnot exist, but we have our own, there's a lot of things I think to figure out with how lightning fast things are changing in the AI realm and everything. I think there's huge societal issues, structural issues we've got to wrestle with.
Yeah, they have two questions in this way. One is just for the business. We had now a long period, especially also in the US, where it was peace and everything was going up. So it's easy to get kind of laziness or believing, because my lifespan is shorter than the long circle, to believe it's always like this.
Yeah,
but
right.
The universal law is different. No? So it goes up or down, and one day it will go down again. So are you prepared? But now with the tech, it goes in so much faster.
Yeah.
And some are saying, the top 5 what the tech guys say, the robot will replace everything. We don't need to work. If you just look at the work, the normal work. So if really the robots would take over, and we are so in stress now, maybe even civil wars on the horizon. But even if the computers or the system gives us enough money that we don't need the civil war, but how we go on with relationship then? The whole world is changing then.
Yeah, it is. I think, yeah. And this is part of the experiment we're running on ourselves, right? No one quite knows how this ends. Now, however, having said that, there's one part of that I have some real conviction about what it will mean going forward. And it's this. It has to do with the evolution of human work, because this transition we're in the middle of is not the first time we've experienced a transition like this. So, I mean, if you think of human work, since the beginning of time, for almost all of our history, our work was physical. It was our bodies doing work, right? And so the stronger people, the more physically adept, were highly valued. So you might think of that as sort of the body economy, let's call it. And then, of course, the Industrial Revolution over a period of time put most of our bodies out of business. I mean, because the machines could do the physical work better than our bodies could. So that opened up a space. So now what's human work going to be if we're not going to be paid for using our physical abilities? Well, so that opened up the brain space, right? So I mean, we've all been living in the mind economy of the last century or so, and we've got very comfortable there. But now the machines are on the move, right? They're like disrupting the mind
it's
space.
a good one. Yeah.
And getting a lot better at the mind things than we are in many cases. So again, it's the same question. So what does that mean for us? Well, one thing it could mean is, well, okay, there's no more human work. And if there's no more human work, I don't believe this is what it means, but let me follow this through. If there's no more human work, then you sure hope the people who get all the money are going to like help everyone who doesn't have a job survive. And there's nothing about human history heretofore that gives me a lot of confidence that those are the decisions that we made. The other side though is there is another human center of work. So one is the body, one is the brain, but the other is the heart. And the heart for me is the relational space. And this is the thing that's uniquely human, that that machines are brilliant on the surface because they can read almost infinite surfaces and give you answers as a result of all of that. But they don't have the inwardness. They don't have the human depth. And so that's uniquely human space. So I believe one of the things I think we're already learning it now, we're going to learn it more and more, is the more the machines take over a lot of the things we've been occupying ourselves in their minds, the more we're going to realize how important this third center has always been. But now we're almost required to wake up to it all the more. We've got to get a lot better at the relational space because it's the relational economy in terms of human work. That's one of the reasons I say that in the introduction to You and We, I say that management of the individual is dead or soon will be. Management of relation is the new leadership paradigm. I really believe that relative to human beings, it's about the relational space, seeing it, managing it, figuring out what to do about it. Now the problem, one of the challenges though, is like Brene Brown likes to say, is we suck at the human stuff, we human beings. That's the one part of the problem. If we're saying the good news here is there's a human realm, this relational realm. Yeah, but if we're not really good at it, then we're in trouble. So getting better and better at the real human stuff, I think is
and then rethinking.
It's an existential issue for us.
And
so going back to
finding
your
humanity
IRS.
in you. Your mind, because like we're discussing, you need to do something for money. So where comes this belief from? So animals in nature, they don't do it. And is an ideal family that you only get food or shelter if you brought money in the family? No, the idea of family is different. Maybe one is doing it, but and that is just a question we need to get rid of and understand more, like the individualism you said. And then I totally agree, and I think it's also nature that we need to shift. We live from the outside in because we didn't have awareness. We saw the planet. So you have land or not. Then we had the hard work. We started as hunters and gatherers. But then we started with agriculture, and there we started with our left brain. And the so-called information age computer, the linear computer, is only left brain. And then we have a financial crisis. And suddenly we realize, okay, we always will hit the wall with linear thinking. What is the meaning? So here we come to the right brain and the heart. What is it all about? What should humanity be?
Yeah.
We need to, because human rights at the moment is the right to be a slave, the right to work. Well, maybe we have totally different ideas. What you make here clear with compounding, expanding, can be so different.
Yeah, very different. Elle, you had a
Yes,
point you were
Elle
just
just
Yeah,
a minute ago.
I wanted to go back to the experience you had with the
Yeah,
IRS.
yeah.
And as I read your book and as I'm listening to you, there's always a moment. There's always potentially an offering or an opening. What do you think that shift was between you and her, where it went from transactional to an actual connection?
That's a great question. You know, so I think where it was is she got on, she says, "Can you give me 5 minutes? I'm going to dive in and try to see what's going on." And I just at that point, I said, "Absolutely, that's great." And I wasn't aggravated by it. And she was, but then she came on like 5 minutes later and said, "You know what's taking a little longer. Would you mind? Can I do it?" And it was so, she didn't have to get on and do that. It was very kind of her to get on. I would have stayed on for an hour waiting for her to get back on, but she was very looking the clock. I promised 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes is up. I'm not done. So she came down and asked my permission. Would that be okay? And that was so kind of her. And then that kind of kindness, because everything's relational, right? We all have relational impact. We become different people in response to different people, right? In situations. And so I find myself at that point, oh, absolutely. Well, thank you. First of all, yes. Yeah. So I was feeling, so then I had these feelings awakening, like, here's this woman I've never met. She's going to bat. She's trying to figure things out. She's being helpful. And it was funny because at the beginning of the call, she felt a little gruff. It was very sort of, I was like, okay, standard. It felt a little standard, and there was no depth to it. But somewhere in the middle of that exchange, when she was mostly away trying to help me, but a few little exchanges, there was a little bit of a movement, like some of the block was starting to move. And all of a sudden, it's like, it wasn't just me with my agenda showing up, I need this, and her with her job showing up there. It's like, no, actually there's a crack in both sides, and there's actually a meeting. Like two human beings actually met there. Her and her job and me with my need. But that was the context that sort of put us in proximity. But we broke through that. Here we were. There was an actual encounter. And then when she came back on, then she says, first of all, she said, I see what's happening. And she says, I can't imagine how frustrating it must be to you to have paid all these taxes, and then you have your government telling you haven't paid them. I mean, I am so sorry about that. I mean, she didn't have to say that. And then in response to that, I mean, I'm feeling so now helped and whatnot. So I'm responding in kind, and we're creating experience together. It's always the way that it is. One person showing up differently in some way, breaking through their own sort of armor or shell in some way, it changes the space between us. It's not even up to the other person. The space has changed as a result of that. There's a shift that's already happened. And then it just, the thaw continued, right? So more of the things sort of melted away. And by the time we were done and we're all talking about football and all these things,
Go
it was
Seahawks.
Yeah, go Seahawks. And I'm saying go Bills. And it was great. And it was thanks for asking about that, Elle, because
what a company is for also, if you translate it, or the government, that we should start again. We're all humans. And okay, you do this job for the government, I do this job. But in the end, we do it all for us. Really, what is the idea of democracy is also, we need to organize us. But we came to a point that the company misuses, manipulates people, or the government is doing it, so that we need to reverse it. Hey, I want to develop and grow personal development in the company. How can we expand there?
I think the best, there's great leaders all over the world doing that. There's so many people who believe in what you're just talking about, Wolfgang. I mean, I see it all the time and work with them. It's just that most people don't know necessarily what to do about it. They don't know quite how to they could use a little bit of help, but there's a lot of willingness I see out there. I mean, from my conversation today, there's willingness even inside the IRS, right? Which we have all these stories in our heads about. I'm sure there's probably a lot of wonderful people walking around the halls of the IRS, but we have a whole story about that, and we align ourselves against them and all of that. And that's got to be a hard place for them to be when they're just trying to do a good job. I remember years ago, Wolfgang, one of the times you and I were together in person, you were introducing me, I think, to a group, and it was a fairly large group, a few hundred people. And you said something like, now you and I might feel like you wish Jim was doing what we're doing, like we're working together. And you stood up and say, but no, but if Jim just did what we did, then we wouldn't have the benefit of Jim being able to do what he does that we don't do and bring that to us, right? We need people doing different kinds of things. We need that. And that I'll always remember that introduction. I thought it was so generous on the one hand, but also spot on. But I think that in business, a lot of times, in fact, I was just writing a piece yesterday, a little bit of a different angle on relation. I'll just mention here, I'm kind of in the middle of it, but one stance we can have relationally is what I'll call vertical stance. And I think it's quite common in a work setting, which is if I have a vertical stance in a relationship with you, Wolfgang, for example, it's like all that matters about you is that you're vertically aligned with me. I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, there is no Wolfgang aside from his alignment with me. That's a vertical stance in a relationship. I can have an angular stance as well, which is now I can actually see a little difference in Wolfgang. I've got a little, it's not just this vertical and you're just eclipsed by me, but I get a little bit of an angular view. But if I'm angular in relation, I'm just trying to move you back sort of into my lane, right? I've got an angle on it. I can also be sort of parallel stance, which is, yeah, we're kind of doing our own things. There's Wolfgang over there. I'm not really paying attention, et cetera. Or we can have finally what I call, and I call it in you and we, a horizontal stance. We can be horizontally in relation where I'm not coming with an angle. I don't have some means. You're not some means to my end that is going to therefore put a barrier between us and everything we do. We might have things we've got to do together, fair enough. But when we're there in the moment in relation, we're there as human beings together. We're on common ground horizontally. We're gonna think together. We're gonna converse. We're gonna engage. We're gonna encounter. And I think in any space, whether it's social or familial or corporate, the more horizontal ground we can create, the better.
Yes,
it's horizontal ground's the only safe ground.
CEOs need to change because there was a time the boss knew everything best, but the time changed, and today the best, well, even the cash cows are coming not from the board of directors or the CEOs. They're coming from those who have the contact. With what people need, and solving the problem there. So the boss who doesn't ignore it, or if you take the work from Bruce Lipton and say, oh no, in the cell, not the what do you call it, the
mitochondria,
the center, the core is not the boss. Yeah, the membrane is so much more important because it's like what comes in, what do we need, how do we have the receptors, are we receptive for this? So if we think everything as an organism, then we can grow together.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
for sure.
Why did you pick this name for the company? What does that really mean? If you
Withy,
normally they take the 3 letters or have an explanation.
Yeah.
Do you make everybody think?
Yeah. So, well, okay. So there's 2 answers. There's the real answer, and then the philosophical answer. Okay, so I'll give you both. Yeah, I'll give you both. So, it's about with. It's about being together, right? So it's the key word is with. We want to be. We our work is about helping people work together better. By the way, one of the key things we do, I'll just mention here, and then I'll continue with the name thing, is one of our key moves in organizations is we'll form what we call connectivity teams that are cross-functional. So when we're working in organizations, we'll put cross-functional teams also together, and we work with them too. So we're helping to stitch across the divides in the organizations. Now, so it's about about together. So what about the 3 I's? Well, so this is where it's just a practical thing. that we ended up in philosophically in a place we love, but we didn't get there philosophically. We just searched what's available. With one eye at the end was not available. With two eyes at the end was not available. With three, at that point I'm like, well, I guess we got to do something. And then with was three eyes was available, so we grabbed it. And then by the time before we actually launched the company, with two eyes became available, and we grabbed that too. But by then we'd actually fallen in love with the three eyes, because you actually have inside the word kind of you've got the first I in the word with is like an individual, and you got a group on the back side, and it's about how the individual and the group sort of, how this coming together actually happens is what the work is. So we stuck with the three eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the story.
Yeah.
So I actually had thought that you had the two eyes on the opposite side. You had the one in the center, and then the opportunity is to turn it horizontal.
Oh, see, that's brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, because that's the move. That's the boo remove, right? Let's turn the divide. It's not a wall. It's actually a hyphen. We're actually in connection. Yeah. Oh, we might make something of that graphic there. Elle, now that you mentioned, that's a good idea.
Oh, there's something okay, so you share these concepts through this fictional story with all these individuals from different companies or different sectors within society. And this was one of the passages that really stood out to me. Substances so stirred at its depth to result in a change in essence, opening a path for transformation from solitariness to synthesis.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about this is when I first read it, it was in my head and I could understand it, but it was really through Zane's show of EQ growth.
Yeah.
And there's this one interaction between him and Dot at the very end that actually made me tear, because without giving too much away, they both had these stories about each other.
Yeah.
And when they opened this bridge, they were able to connect, and there was so much more understanding. And then this passage comes up again. And for me, it had such a cathartic and palpable experience. It reminded me of this one film. Did you ever see Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Oh, yes. I saw that 3 or 4 times.
Okay. I'm curious if you had the same experience I did. When we're going through it, it's my body physically felt like it was on a journey, and my mind somebody was inside my mind stretching. Yeah. And then there's that one scene that we all become a rock.
I knew you were going there. I love that rock scene. Oh my word, yes.
I took the biggest exhale. And I remember telling the friend I was with, I was like, I really needed this.
Yeah.
And it was this release. And then obviously we re-enter the story. And that was a very similar experience of this journey of these characters in that moment between Zane and Dot.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt that too. One of the, I think this is a weird thing about me in my method of writing, is when I write a book that's like You and We, written in a story form, and a number of my books I've done that way, like Leadership and Self-Deception, Wolfgang that you mentioned, Anatomy of Peace. I actually don't know where the story is going when I start. I don't block it out. I don't actually know who the characters are when I start. I learn them as I go. They unfold for me. And then that will often mean I've got to come back and rewrite some of the earlier things, because I've actually learned who they are through their becoming each other, with each other. And so like that moment that you're talking about is the same for me. I was tearing up too. I mean, because I didn't plan that. I didn't know that was going to happen. It just it's what emerged out of the realities that had come together, over the course of that story. Here it was. And it appeared, right? And that verse you cited as well, I centered the story. Most of it happens in a property that's in Maryland. It's actually a real place. It's a real museum. It's called Glenstone Museum. It's absolutely amazing. It's like 300-acre property. As a property, it's stunning. But then just the art museum parts of it as well. It's just really something special. And one of the features of that space is you walk in the main building complex, and you have a verse that's etched on the wall, which isn't quite that verse, but the verse that's etched on the wall inspired that verse for me. So even the book itself, the book is about how everything's in relation. Well, the book came about relationally. I mean, so we moved into this place here in Maryland, and we met our next door neighbor. She's just a marvelous person. And she said, "Have you been to this place called Glenstone Museum? You got to go." So we end up going because Barbara recommended it. Well, if we hadn't moved into next to Barbara, I wouldn't have ever gotten to Glenstone, and this book wouldn't have happened. I mean, so I actually gave Barbara the first copy of the book off the press. I wrote it back. This book would not have happened but for you. And so I walk in, and that verse is there. That all of a sudden had this impact on me. That room where a lot of the things that happen in the book, that room that's not a room, that's an actual room, and it'll blow your mind if you ever visit Glenstone Museum. And that room itself ends up being important conceptually as well, because it becomes a metaphor how we get stuck in our minds without even realize that we're stuck, because we can see everything fine. We're looking through the window. We just don't realize it's a window still. And how do you get beyond the window into real encounter with people? Well, I couldn't have gotten to those places partly without the physical space of Glenstone Museum that taught me things that were there in interaction with them. I learned from them, and that all came from Barbara, et cetera. So, and that verse had its own role. So it's really interesting to me how things emerge, in life, and nothing comes from some single solitary source. It's all an expression of things mixing together.
But you mix wonderful together, because if you just go in NLP, just as a visual, auditive, or kinesthetic people, you have a brilliant concept. The brilliant mind is in the book. You have wonderful examples and charts and everything. You make it visible.
Yeah.
And what you both just shared, extremely feelings are in. You can really dive in. It's interesting how you explained it. How it turns out that you don't know it in the beginning, because it feels really like you can't plan it.
Yeah. It's like, for me, it's like I try to feel a story that's already happening. Mm-hmm. It's already in motion.
Yeah.
I want to write downhill. It's like I want to be able to follow that story, and you get rolled and wrapped up into it. And that's the experience for me.
Is this what you teach also? Well, I try intellectually, also here in the conversation, I'm more in the intellect. You can connect totally different. But this is a concept, at least intellectually, I like to get every CEO to understand. Whatever the business plans are, be in the here and now and work from there.
Yeah.
They make so many business plans. What will happen in 5 years? Yes. If you get God to laugh, tell him about your plans. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? I mean, a lot of things happens out of tension, right? It's sort of like there are coexistent things that are in tension. And one is having a plan. I mean, thinking hard enough to build a good plan is actually really good practice. But then being able to hold that plan just lightly enough that you can pivot from the plan. You can become something more than you would. The plan would allow you to be, but that only happens in presence, right? And it'll happen if people are allowed to bring their differences together really authentically, and we grapple together with those things, and hold on to each other while we're doing it. I think of all the skills in the world, right now, I would say the skill that's most important is the ability to hold on to our differences, whatever convictions there might be, but hold on to each other while we're doing it.
Yes.
And be in the middle of that, the tension of that grapple.
So really, all in it, like you say, all in the same boat. But it is also the understanding. I'm not sure how you really express it, but everybody talks about be, do, have.
Mm.
But you show how you start to connect as beings again.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies or intellectually start, we are the human doings, or human plannings and human havings or whatever. And it's just, wow. And if the being, like you see, the connectedness is there, it doesn't really matter what happens, we will find a way, because we compounding and we found the solutions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
While reading this, I had myself mapping out my own relational map.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yesterday, I had both the experience of interacting with one I would call compounding and expanding, and then another one that was maybe more coexisting that I wish to have on more of the collaboration or compounding level.
Yeah.
So I think the questions that come in my mind, there's a couple. How do I inspire that or allow for that if they don't have the consciousness or willingness to go there to offer the depth?
Yeah.
And then the other question on an even more extreme is what happens when that difference is harmful? What happens when it's breaking and we have systems set up to encourage blocking and breaking?
Yeah,
So I think one's more on a personal level and one's more on a societal level.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, those are really important questions, Elle. So in response to the first one, I want to share an experience I had here a couple months ago. So I was being interviewed here in DC on a television show, one of those, talk sort of shows. And it was only about a 5-minute back and forth, but I actually, I blew the last question. I just got it. I just blew it. I did not give the right answer. And it wasn't that the answer that I gave was wrong in and of itself. It's just that it was limited. It was the kind of answer I would have given 10 years ago and like staked my life on. But I've learned a lot over those last 10 years. I realized actually there were things I didn't understand 10 years ago that I get now. So basically the question was this: what if you're willing to change? You basically asked me a form of that question. What if you're willing to change, but the other person isn't, right? You're willing to step into that space between they're not. And my answer was, what I said was, well, someone has to go first or nothing will happen, right? And that's true insofar as it goes, but it's misunderstanding something. And it's misunderstanding is partly being set up by the question itself, because notice the question's already articulated. It was articulated individualistically. I'm willing, but they're not. We're already talking in terms of two separates here. And that sets us up for a certain kind of an answer. But what I've learned is actually that any change by anybody or by the system, because our relations are not only about, we're affected by the systems around us, the community around us as well. Any change changes the space between us. It changes it. So if I'm going in saying, yeah, but if I'm willing to change, but the other person doesn't, I'm already holding out this, okay, I'll do my piece to try to get them to do their piece. No, if I change in whatever way, the space is different now. It just is. It's a different, when you think it from the perspective of we, it's a different we now than it was before.
You relate to entanglement?
What's that?
The entanglement idea that if
with
you
physics,
change the other particles changing anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Look, I'm a sort of a novice quantum physics geek. I love that stuff. So that spooky science at a distance, as Einstein called entanglement. Yeah, that blows my mind. But I think that it's that what's happening here is there's what I call a weak case for relation and the strong case for relation. The weak case for relation is actually inherently individualistic. It is, I'm over here, Elle, you're over there. What I do will affect you. What you do will affect me. Now that's true. I don't dispute that. It's absolutely true. But the stronger case for relation is actually that we help to form each other. It's not just, we're not actually separates in the way we think about it. It's we become who we are in the context of each other. We are who we are in response to each other. I deal with this in the book in a number of ways, but one way is I have the characters in the book identify two relationships in their lives. One, like maybe their best relationship, and one maybe their hardest, and then come up with 3 words that describe themselves in each of those relationships, right? And when people do this, and I do this with people live all the time, they're always 2 different lists. There's the There's a list of who I am in this really good relationship. There's the list of who I am in this really tough one. And then the question is, so which person are you? I mean, you have two different lists. They describe like two different people. Well, the answer is, of course, I'm both people, because I am who I am in relation. And so I become a different person in the context of us. I do. And when the between changes, that we space changes, and new thing, just like on that call with the IRS agent this morning, we lived that kind of experience together. So to me, yes, I believe in the weak theory of relation. It's important to keep that in mind, but I also really believe in the strong theory of relation, which is none of us is a separate, in the sense that I'm an individual, but I'm an individual who is formed in the context of relation. And so you're in me and I'm in you. And there are a lot of people in my life that if I hadn't encountered in my life, there'd be no You and We book, and never would have happened. There was a guy who, for example, he really believed in me early on when we were first at my prior company, the Arbinger Institute, and we needed a book, and he thought I was a good writer. I was a lawyer previously, so I could technically write, but it was boring. I mean, no one would want to read that stuff. It was just legal briefs. But he believed in me. He said, you can write. And if I wasn't partnered with him, I probably never would have written anything. I've written, I don't know, 16 books. I mean, so I've written a bunch of books now. I wouldn't have written any books but for him. So that's the sense we become in the context of relation. And so any change in the between changes everything. And we're not to be waiting on each other, because we're not separate in that regard. Let's tend to the between,
And not the thing, just the individual relation. I assume if you go on a company, the whole company changes.
Yeah.
Or the culture of the company changes.
Yeah.
Everything changes.
And it has to do with how I'm showing up, how you're showing up. It has to do with the systems and processes and what they're inviting in people, what the community of the place. So there are all these different levers that can be pulled that we think of. They all have relational impact. And part of what we do at Withy is we actually measure the relational impact of all of these factors. So you can see what's actually holding you back in terms of connectivity across a system, what's actually promoting it. And then we help organizations really tackle those issues. And that's a new conversation. People aren't thinking relationally normally. So it's an entirely new thing. Now, that was a long-winded answer, Elle, to your first question. Now let's come to your second. So the second question, can you articulate that again?
How do we set up this kind of interaction relation when the differences could be harmful or oppressive?
Yeah. Well, so that's why I say that so let me put this back in company space, first of all, and that which isn't quite as far as you've taken it, but then I want to come to your question. So in a company, we'll chart, we've got tools to do this. We'll build, what we call a connectivity map or a relational map of a whole system. So, say between sales and marketing, sales and engineering, between, operations and admin, we're mapping the sort of relational levels between all the parts of the organization. You've seen in the book, you have a grid where you can see those levels. Well, and we score the way we score them is sort of interesting. We put division is a -2 relationally, subtraction is a -1, addition is a 0, multiplication is a 1, and compounding is a 2. Although it's a bit like the Richter scale, like each move in 1 is multiples of the previous. And you might think, well, okay, we want 2s across the system. But in fact, actually, that's not usually the case in an organization of size, because strategically, there's some parts of the organization that actually don't maybe interact or touch much with another one. And if all of a sudden we're going to we need to make sure we're 2 between these 2, it actually might divert resources and time away from other places they need to be more strategically used. So what we'll do with organizations, we'll say, okay, we'll chart the current connectivity levels of the whole system. Now let's chart the ideal. So what, from your perspective, would be the ideals? And there might be some places where addition is just fine between some departments, for example. Maybe it's fine. Now, I haven't come across an organizational case yet for why one of the negatives would be a good idea. At least we want to get to addition and not be making things harder. Now, let's come to the tougher case. Let's come to a case where we're at a division level, okay? Or we might believe that something that someone else wants to do or some group wants to do is just so terrible that, I need to oppose it. Okay. All right. Well, relationally speaking, then in a case like that, in fact, we just came off the Super Bowl, for example. Relationally speaking, between the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks, they were not trying to compound together to help the other. They were like, no, they were trying to get in each other's way. So when you're thinking of relationally speaking, are there times when actually maybe the right thing is to actually try to stop something? Yeah, absolutely. I believe that. Now, it still leaves the human question: who am I going to be while I'm doing it, and what are the most effective ways to do that as a human being? Those are still questions that are there, but I'm not making you and we a moral case for that everyone needs to be in compounding in every situation. That's a question. It's a relational question. We got to think through the situations and see. We do that.
Identified with like leaving the stadium, then the fans should not being against or opposed, and then we should be humans again, so that we consciously can make the shift.
Well, I would say we should always be humans. So even in every case,
sure.
Humans,
but as a human, I support my team, so I support.
Here's a case in the States right now that we're dealing with. I think has massive ramifications, and it's that. And I touch on this in You and We, but in our political system, we have this basically de facto two-party system. And so let's say I get elected as a Republican, or I get reelected as a Democrat. Well, I think it's easy in the present climate to sort of identify with, like, your constituents are just the people who voted for you. But in fact, you're actually supposed to be the representative for everybody. Yeah. Actually, they're all on the same team. And if they're on the same team, we might have different opinions, but we are on the same team. This isn't the Super Bowl like actually we're we the people with different opinions. And if that's the case, then in a political system, Republicans and Democrats also in a way aren't opponents. They're actually representing the same people, and we should be we're the same team. In that case, I would say actually figuring out how to climb the relational levels, which again doesn't mean you have to give up your convictions. Remember,
no.
Hydrogen and oxygen still have to retain their natures in order to have water emerge. It's like, let's hold on to that, but let's hold on to each other in real encounter in the halls of Congress and other places. And we're going to hang on to each other because we're part of the same team. We have different views, but we're part of the same team. That is a totally different political outcome. And I think we've entirely lost that, or mostly lost that at the present moment. And I think we've got to get that back. Good, vigorous debate while holding on to each other, because we actually are together. We're with, whether you want it or not, we're with, and we got to figure things out.
Do you think it's that last part of the statement that's missing, while holding on to each other?
Absolutely. Because we're holding on to people like ourselves, right? That's the homophily thing, which is the natural thing to do. We retreat into in the comfortable spaces of our own heads, where I already agree with the stuff going on there, and I agree with the people who agree with the stuff going on here. And we retreat into those spaces. This has all been accelerated by social media and other technological things that are happening to our great detriment. It's, from my point of view, please bring your convictions, and all the better if they're different from mine. Fantastic. But now let's have real encounter. Let's really hold on to each other. I really want to dive in, because I know, Elle, that you have good reasons from your point of view why you hold the convictions you do. I already know that before I know what your convictions are. And it's the same for me. And I want to understand that. I want to dive in, because there's probably things I'm not seeing. There have to be. And I think that's a super healthy conversation to have.
And wouldn't it be a boring world? We have only one plant everywhere, one animal everywhere. It would be very boring. So
yes, it would.
That's the variety that makes it really interesting.
Yeah, it's true.
Jim, the book You and We, someone reads it now.
Yeah.
And then has an idea, oh yes, it sounds so good. I want to implement it. I want to live it. Yeah. What do you think is the hardest change they'll have to make, and the one most people underestimate?
That's a really interesting question. Well, so I think the hardest thing might be, because the book, it's about relationality. It's best to do the book together. In whatever form, to be in conversations with others around it, to not sort of go solo on relation. You know what I mean? And one of the things, I love ideas. I'm a big idea guy. And that can get me stuck in my head, which is fine, but that's not the same thing as being in connection. We got to realize that, sometimes we're in our heads, but if we're going to connect, we got to get out our heads. So I can actually read you and we, think about the ideas in you and we, and I can be, for me, they're fascinating, and I can just go off in my head and just be like mesmerized. Okay. And that's fine, but that's not yet in relation. Right. And so to get out an actual encounter with people, whether other people have read the book or not, if they have, there's all kinds of book clubs going on all over the place, and people are reading. We've got a community called You and We Academy that people can join, where we have all kinds of things going on there. In fact, just recently, we started up a series on there called the Ongoing Constitutional Convention, holding on to each other while we're exploring differences. It's a whole thing that's happening on You and We Academy now, where people with different political views in good safe relational space can get in and grapple together. There's a whole bunch of things like that happening on You and We community. So people, there's communities that people can find if they want to get in conversation. So I'd say that's one, is that take relations seriously enough to sort of get out of yourself and engage with others. And to then realize, and this is the other thing that I'll say to that, it's that we get stuck in our heads in ways we don't realize it. Sometimes I'll do this funny exercise, is I'll have everyone start counting 1 to 100. I'll have count it out loud, 1 to 100. So everyone's counting. We're in a big room. There's like 100 people. Everyone's counting at their own volumes and pace. And then I'll say, keep counting, but do it silently. And they do that. And then I pair them up and I say, now I want you to keep counting. You're all counting, but you're now going to, with your partner, you're going to have, while you're both counting in your heads, you're going to have a conversation about something that's been really meaningful that we've talked about here. Ready? Go. So now they try to have this real conversation while they're counting in their heads, which of course is so massively frustrating. You can't do that at all. And so we have a discussion about that on the one hand, that's absurd. That's absurd. Yes, it's absurd, but on the other hand, we're doing that all the time. We're always counting to 100 in our heads. We're just not doing it like that. And so to learn how it is we're counting to 100 in our heads, it's keeping us from actually being in connection with others, is sort of the big thing, I think, that's helpful for people to tackle. And until we tackle that, we kind of get held back and keep being stuck.
And the belief that what they have in their head is their choice, because it's not really their choice. We can't stop it.
Yeah, and it's also, I didn't decide it on my own. I mean, I'm the product of all kinds of relational intersections,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think is beautiful about human beings, is that we're all connected on the one hand, but it's the relationality between us means that every single human being has a slightly unique perspective on the universe, on the world, because only they have the particular relational mix that they have.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different relation. So we end up with all these different sort of points of perspective that we all have, and they're all different. There's something to learn and be puzzled about, even from each of them. I find that really fascinating, and I think it's a vital part of the growth project.
And it's the only way to come closer, a little bit closer to truth.
Yeah.
If you're not able to see it from a different perspective, you just keep up your illusion.
It's true. There's a really fascinating quote from Martin Buber, who was a Jewish man, and he was asked by a Christian pastor once. Who asked Buber, he said, "Do you believe in God?" And Buber said, this isn't going to be an exact quote, but basically this is what he said. He says, "If by that do you mean, do I believe in who I think God is when I'm thinking about God in third person in my head, then I don't believe in God. But if by that you mean, me, talking with God in prayer, then I do believe in God." That's his way of saying, is anything I can think of in my head that God is in my head, that's not God, because that's in my head. I mean, that's still my own concepts. But but to be an actual connection from his perspective with the divine, an actual encounter. I believe in that. That's Boomer's thing. And I think that's true of everything. It's like, do you know Elle Young? Do you believe in Elle Young? Well, if what you think is what I have in my head about Elle Young, well, I don't believe in that, because that's not Elle Young. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it's just, I realize, no, but if actual encounter with Elle Young right here, actual meeting and encounter, I totally believe in Elle Young, right? And I think we miss that. We miss real encounter, real actual meeting, because we're in our heads so much, and more now than ever with all of being on our phones and everything, which are just appendages to our heads. It's worse than ever.
Yeah, it's a kind of illusion that there are only two people, or here maybe on the Zoom 3. No, there's so many more. No.
So true.
Who I think you are, who I think I am, or who I think you think I am. So it's a little bit overcrowded. So we need to talk to come really to figure out, come closer who you really are. So in the end, it's really simply just discover what they said for thousands of years. What is your, what they call it, self-awareness, the true self? What's your purpose? And can we live from there? So, like you said, from a hand worker to brain worker to heart worker, so far we worked outside in. If we really get it, and then from the soul, from the concept to the diviner, so it means the spiritual being, be. Now we decide what we do. We can use the brain before we work, but exactly from the inside out.
Yeah.
And your book, especially with the examples and the charts, like Elle just said, also I made the charts of my relationship.
That's so good. Yeah.
It is so helpful.
Yeah.
Coming out also of illusions or just feeling problems to really see.
Wow. Wait, can I see that again, Elle? So what is this? This is, these are your notes on. Yeah. Love this.
These are my notes. I'm just a very visual person. And so taking everything and building a framework that makes sense to me to use these as tools. Something that I am going to be taking away is a question when relation is hard. And it's, what can I let go of in this moment to open?
What can I let go of in this moment?
To open.
Mm. So is that a question of me? Or are you saying that's a question you've learned to ask of yourself that sort of gets you there?
Reading the book actually inspired that question, because something I do naturally is I feel like I am open to connection. I ask, what was your highlight? Or what was your hard this last week? Probably 20 times a day. Because it'll be the barista. It'll be a person that I meet in the street. It'll be a friend on the phone, because I genuinely want to connect. And it's gone really wonderful 95% of the time. There are those times where people will be like, I'm great. I'm like, no. I asked you, what's your highlight? And there's something that happens when there is this human moment.
Yeah.
Like very much going back to the IRS. There's that shift, and it's palpable, and it builds. And I've learned so much about the baristas that one of my favorite cafes, I've learned the musical endeavors of the different baristas. I've learned that one is having a workshop that I'm going to go attend in March. And so now we get to build community.
Yeah. I love that. So good. So good.
I'm so grateful for this framework. I'm also incredibly grateful for Andrea Hoban, who you thanked, because she encouraged you to write the epilogue.
Yeah. She said, she loved the book, read it, and she said, I think it needs an epilogue. Now, she didn't tell me what, but I think it feels like it needs something more, right? Because there's a story and it's done. So I'd love to hear, what was your experience with the epilogue, Elle?
For me, it brought into conversation every question that was in my mind.
Yeah.
And because throughout this story that's told, and as they're learning the framework of relation, I'm actually building relation with the characters.
Yes.
And so I care. What happens to Zane and his kids? What happens? How do all these people go out and now create a ripple effect in their communities?
Yeah.
And I love the acknowledgement of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was your intention for the epilogue?
Well, that's what it was. It was sort of like, one of the risks of a book like this is it's about the inherent relationality, and we can end up actually missing it at the end, because I feel like here I am, I'm over here reading, there's those characters over there. But no, actually the whole reading experience has been an intersection of me with them, right? I mean, the caring that comes up in my own heart is my own participation in the characters. I've not been reading about anything separate from myself from the start. It's all been in connection. It's all been through the interaction. And so I was wanting in the epilogue to come back to that point. Remember what's actually happening here. The question then really isn't what happens next to Zane, or what happens next to Lainey, or with Dot, or in this company. It's like, what's going to happen with you, right? You're going to write the next chapter in this story and the ones that follow. And that's relational too. That's an ongoing relation between you and the experience with the characters in the book. And so what's that story going to be? And then I also invite, now, if you want to write those stories together, great. Then let's connect. We can work on our stories together.
I also like the relation between myself and you as the author, because you put it on the table. And sometimes in conversation and relation, we don't put the thing on the table and just acknowledge it.
Yeah, it's true.
And you did.
Yeah, it's true. It's a bit like, the epilogues, you're in a trance a little bit. You read the book as a story and you buy into the story. These characters feel real in their movement. And all of a sudden the epilogue sort of removes sort of the veil. It's like, wait a second. That wasn't just a play. That was your own experience you're having with this. You've been in it all the way along, and it's not really about them. Therefore, it's like, what's going to happen with us? Yeah. So that's a way. Yeah. I wanted to sort of, for me, the epilogue is sort of like it's the threshold through which, okay, I've just had this experience now what's next? And we sort of walk through that door. It's the invitation to do that and to take it forward. Yeah. I have a dream relative to this. And I'll just state it here. And I see this happening. This is going to happen. But one of my dreams is that we equip the world to relationally map itself ongoingly. Every town, every village, every province, every state, every nation, between nations, because we're not thinking this way yet. We just aren't. We're all thinking about our own little bits and parts. We're not mapping the space. There's this conception of the relational space and what's going on between. And so we've built technology that will enable all of this that we use inside of companies primarily, but and organizations of all kinds, but to figure out how we can put it in the hands of people generally and get people in conversation. What about between the police department and the schools, and between the faith communities and between the business communities? And you can think of all the relational nodes in each, and to get those people in conversation. Well, from my perspective, I think we're at this level of relation relative to this other. Well, but from their perspective, they see it a little bit differently. And all of a sudden you get these disparate parts in conversation talking. We start mapping the space. Man, so many things become possible when we start doing that.
It will happen. I'm 100%, 100% or 120% sure it will happen, because it's natural, like the brain, or you mentioned the computer, the linear computer and the quantum computer is about relationships so much, and everything is at the same time.
Yeah.
The moment we get out of the linear thinking and the separateness, then we understand how nature is working. Look at the forest, look at the brain. Everything is like that.
Yeah.
So it will come, or if you go spiral dynamic, then it says turquoise level, the VQ level. So we're on the process from the IQ to the VQ.
Yeah.
It's just the question of time. And what also happened, unfortunately, in history, we are close for the next level and we have problems and it's so complicated, we have a tendency to go back. We don't like the complexity. We go back. Can we make it?
Yeah.
But no, we need to understand the complexity of a brain, of nature. And like you said, wow, if all connected, it's more cool complexity.
Yeah.
But that's the fun part.
Yeah. It's the scary part too, though, right? Yes. It's the scary part too, right?
Because it's scary part because we created a belief. We created a habit.
Yeah. Well, it's also... Yeah, I think there's another piece to it too. It's that, and I hear this in companies all the time. I mean, you have people talking language of transformation. We need to be transformative. But I actually think most people actually aren't wanting transformation. They're actually just wanting positive change. And here's why.
Yes.
It's because the other side of a transformation can have effects that I don't know. I mean, it's a transformation.
It's yes, like, it is.
The other side of the transformation might be, I shouldn't be the CEO anymore, right? Yes. That's what we learn. And so if I'm all clamped down and worried and want to maintain the status quo, then I'm in favor of manageable change. And I'm scared of actual transformation. And so I think that's a real thing.
Yeah. Why are you identified with the position of a CEO? That's training. Because like you said, it comes back to who you really are, what do you really want in life.
Yeah.
And then by the end, we can talk about the top 5 regrets of the dying. And then they suddenly say, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that I had a day more being CEO. That was not most important. Then all what we missed comes.
Yeah. So,
it's good.
Yeah. Now, I think that fear is real out there. I get it.
Yeah. Sure.
There's also a lot of people who are willing. Yeah. But even with that, we're still in for transformation, and it's okay to work at the change. We'll work at the change level then. That's great too. I mean, that's why on the levels of relation, if you think of the 5 of them, you got division, subtraction, addition, multiplication, and compounding. Multiplication is a fantastically positive place to be, and you can have a lot of great change there. Transformation happens at compounding, and so who's on board for that? Let's go. And people who aren't quite on board for that yet, okay, we can hang out and work together at the multiplication level, which the whole world's trying to get there because that's super positive, and then we'll look for openings and where we can move beyond that.
Yeah, but if we come back to family and whatever the ideal is, at least I see in a lot of American films, we are family. So everything talks about family. But what is a healthy family? Okay, maybe there's later parents, but there's a couple who started, then there's the parents, and then there's somehow the bosses and the little ones come. But this is not a healthy family if the dad, maybe the breadwinner, is then the big boss the rest of the life.
Yeah.
No, it is just enjoy it if the kids are there and everybody is contributing. And that you maybe one day don't need to do the job anymore because you have grandkids or grandkids, and it makes your life always easier.
Yeah.
If we take care of what is the culture in the family.
Yeah, it's true.
And not stick with stripes on the arms or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Part of this transformation or this relation with others also about the quality and the connectedness that we have within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say
saying, is that a question? Are you saying is part of it? Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say that's right. Is that the divisions we see out in the world are sort of reflective of the fractures we have within. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean,
there's this I go to a place called Teva Wellness, and it is a sauna cold plunge experience. And they set it up where you're going in and you're going to either experience your own self-guided experience, or you go in for breath work. So breath work in the sauna. And they have words before you enter, and it says pause for transformation. And every time I see that, it reminds me, I take a deep breath, it reminds me, it's like, what am I doing to stay connected to self? What am I doing to grow myself? And so my question to actually both of you is, what is something you're doing to pause for transformation?
Do you want to go first, Wolfgang? Do you want me to?
I'm not sure if I can pause the transformation, what actually means pausing, but I try more and more to be in the center. And somehow living is always, like we said, we are always different in relations. So everything is adding to me. So I'm never the same. Like we say, if you go to the river, the second time we go along the same river, you are not the same person. So there's an ongoing transformation what the problem is more, as even if you have a job where you're responsible for employees and everything, you put too much pressure on yourself. But if you have the healthy family organized, okay, then I can take a break or whatever. I need to digest. I need to cover. Like in sports, you don't win the gold medal if you say, oh, the next 8 years, I train every day. No, the system is you need to give it a break, that the muscles
give a break.
And everything. And even if you go to Google, they say 20% of the time you're not allowed to do the normal job. So it's about not doing the same thing all the time and allow things to happen in a body, because you can't control everything. Yeah, transformation needs also some change I can't really control or make happen. And enjoy. And what we talked about certainty, you answered. We need to learn again to enjoy uncertainty. In the Christian world, they say, be kid again. Yeah, not childish, but be careful. What is the memory? Like you said, the CEO who tries to get rid of or has fear that he is replaced or whatever. This is just the problem. Also, he will handle the next problem the old way, and that is never working. So there is a time where I need to pause, have a kind of free day, not stressing myself. That is a kind of pause, but I would never say that I pause the transformation, because a lot of transformation is just happening while I'm pausing.
I say, oh yeah, that's a really interesting point. So so here's what came to mind for me, Elle, in response to that. Two things. So one of them is, for me, one of the most healthy pauses is to read. And to read something different. I just read over the last 2 days. I just read Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, for example. I had not read that before. And for reading, for me, is actually deeply relational, because I mean, I felt like I've been in a conversation with Hermann Hesse, over the last couple of days. I've been scribbling in the margins. I've all kinds of, we've been in conversation. And for me, since so much of my work is around in idea space, but if all I'm doing is hanging out in my own head, there's a limit to what happens in my own head. I've got to be in response and in relation to a whole bunch of other things. And then out of that emerges just new thoughts and new insights. And so for me, that's huge, just intellectually, in terms of a transformation, sort of intellectually and then professionally, for me, reading. When I'm not doing that, because I get so busy and just don't have that space, I'm not making space for that, I really notice it.
But how do you read? Is this just more kind of relaxing for you, or you're collecting new information?
Oh, when I read, so you can tell the books that are really meaningful to me, because I am scribbling everywhere in the margins. I'm writing things.
It's a different way of working.
The ones that are really meaningful, I create a new index in the first, in the pages at the beginning, all the blank spaces, all the things that for me are sticking out, both what's been written and my responses to what's been written. I create my own index, so I can go back to these books. Mm-hmm. You can always tell the books that have affected me, because that's what's happened. You'll see my scribbles everywhere. So, so it's, for me, it's a very active thing. Now, I think interpersonally, there's a different kind of a pause for me. And that is that if I can find, let me tell you another story on this to introduce this. So I had to take the car in. Oh, it was only to re-register it, to like get my new tags for the year. Okay. So I go into this car place, and there's this gentleman who's at the front desk. And he was nice enough, but he was a little bit gruff. And he, the stuff he was wearing, I found myself, I didn't realize it was doing this in the moment, but I was making judgments about who this person was, what he believed in, what he cared about, all this stuff. I went over there. I'm sitting in the waiting room while this is going on. And there's stuff on the TV, and I'm like, so and even the stuff on the TV is adding to the station that's being played is adding to my narrative about who this guy is. So anyway, we just had a very curt, it was a little bit like the first part of the IRS agent conversation earlier today. Just curt, all business, do the thing, I just need this. Well, so they get to it, and they do run the admissions test on it, and so I come up to get taken care of. And so something about that conversation, we started to have a back and forth. And in the middle of that back and forth, I don't know if he'd been making judgments of me. I'd been making judgments of him, but all of a sudden my judgment started to drop away a couple of times. One was, he said, here's your bill. It's $150 to the state. It's $43 to us. And that struck me in the moment, just as a human being. That struck me. You guys did all the work, and the state's getting all the money. So I actually said that. I said, that means the state gets all the money. You did all the work. He said, yeah, isn't that the way it happens? He kind of cracked a little smile. All of a sudden, there was a bit of a connection. Like, it wasn't just the transaction. And then we went back and forth a little bit, and I thanked him, and I go out to my car to put on the tags. And then I realized I can't do that because I have a plastic cover on the cat. I need a screwdriver. So I come back in to say, hey, do you happen to have a screwdriver? And he says, yeah, because I need to get a cover off. He says, yeah, hang on. And he turns to get it. And then he goes, oh, wait a second. He pulls out like some tool in his pocket. Here, I come out. So he comes out with me. And he takes the plate off for me and puts on my tag for me. And here's the guy I'd been making all these judgments about all the time all those judgments would have kept us from actually being in connection, and how they just sort of step by step just started melting away. We took a selfie together at the end. He's putting a thumb up, and we had this really nice parting. His name was Monty, and I realized when I was walking away, man, how often do I do that? And so what I need to do is pause my judgments. And because I can't really get in connection so long as I'm in the middle of that kind of judgment, because I'm in my head. I'm seeing him, but I'm stuck in that room with the glass wall that I write about in the book. I think I'm in connection. I'm not. I'm still stuck. And I've got to pause that to give it a chance to step out beyond the glass, get in the actual space between, which, by the way, a lot of things don't exist in the space between that exists behind the glass, like triggers you don't get triggered in the between. There's nothing to be triggered around. Mm-hmm. All these judgments, the judgments are happening back inside the glass. They're not happening out in the between. All that stuff's gone. All the complexity that I'm puzzling about, and it's not there in the between. We're just right there in the moment. So to me, it's interpersonally pausing judgment to give it some oxygen, to give it.
But isn't that the best advice how to live your life?
Yeah.
And transformation, maybe then have a different meaning of transformation. If I have a caterpillar and he makes a transformation, out comes a butterfly, not a pausing caterpillar.
Yeah.
And in the transformation, something happens. It's just a new mixture. All the particles are the same and just arranged, and then comes something totally different out.
Yeah, and I think in the case of human beings, I don't think our cocoons are individual. I think they're relational. And so there's no butterfly that emerges except the butterfly that's through this confluence of Jim and Monty in this case. It's out of that alone. I'm just me. I'm still the caterpillar, but we give birth to all these new possibilities when we actually connect with other humans.
But is it true in your work? Like, say you meet a CEO who is afraid to lose his job position because he has a belief system.
Yeah.
And after a while working with you, seeing this, the culture is different, and maybe he loses fear. Is that not really a kind of transformation then?
For sure. Yeah.
You can't go back to this really.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So,
or Jim as a 5-year-old and today, you said him 10 years ago, I said something different. Yeah.
Hopefully I'll believe new things in 5 years than I do now. New things that I haven't discovered. Yes. Hopefully that's true of all of us, but that's only going to be true if I've been able to bump up against difference and really consider it, really grapple with it, really respect it enough to take it seriously. That's the only path forward, I think. The only growing path forward.
So we're coming to the back. You found if Elle is happy with the answer, so I want to continue. You were asking it?
Am I happy with the answers?
Yeah, you asked. Yeah, we should say something what transformation is.
Yeah, I received the answers, fully present to both of them.
Mhm. Because otherwise, I would start with the first question again, where we're coming from, where we're going. And when we talk about transformation, we're now just in the middle of the experiment. So where are we? What do we see? What will come? Even if we only had a glimpse,
A
because
little,
we
a little
don't know
peek.
what will there come water or what will really emerge. But
Yeah. Yeah. And some people are like seers and prophets, maybe they can see the future that way. To me, what I have, for me, it's a conviction born of experience. I haven't, at least in my own life, this hasn't been disproven a single time. And it's been reinforced over and over and over, is that things have never ended up worse on the other side of connection. Not one time. And so I can see just that far. I can peek my head above to realize, you know what, I'm actually not in connection, not really. And then take steps to open myself to that. And, really the most beautiful things in life for me have always been on the other side of that. And so I can see just that far. And so I have a conviction, I suppose, comes from that, since I've lived it so many times, that I think for humanity in general, if we can get better and better at doing that, I think that bodes well for the species. If we take each other seriously enough to really encounter each other, and not live in our own fantasies. But actually, create, because what world can be created depends on what level of relation we're going to engage at. I mean, that's what rides on how we're going to connect or not, is what worlds are going to emerge as a result. And the better worlds emerge, the higher up we go the relational ladder, in my experience.
Yeah, totally agree. There's someone, I don't find it. I learned someone, I guess he worked with dolphins and everything, then he stopped because they were so intelligent. And there somehow came an idea of the evolution. If there is whatever unit you see, if there are 10 billion, then there is a kind of conscious jump. As a super organism, next organism comes, and now we're close to 9 million, a billion people, and so we close there, and I guess we feel, well, what we're talking about, more and more people seeing it, more and more people, and in the work you do, you influence more and more people. We see also the old world fighting. But that is always in history. Every organism tries to protect itself, but with ways they're not really helping for the future. So that somehow they always destroy themselves. But there's so much new stuff emerging. So I'm extremely positive with this, where it goes. The problem is, like stock market, how many dips we will have in between. And how complicated we make. But I believe it will be better and better.
Yeah, I agree too. By the way, Elle, a fascinating discussion. I'd love to be in this discussion with you at some point, because I'd love to get in a conversation around relationality in acting and film, because I mean you're living this all the time, right? That back and forth and the difference, and when that interaction is actually alive and real versus when it's not. For example, what becomes possible in a motion picture, both ways. I think that would be a fascinating exploration.
That would probably be another podcast, but absolutely. I think, I mean, just on a very simple level, being in a scene with my acting partner, there has to be an opening. We have to be open to each other and to what emerges. And at the end of the day, the goal is to be as truthful as possible in these characters, and to serve the story that we're telling. And I think that's such a beautiful approach. Even bringing that to relationship is to be truthful, but kind. Be truthful.
Yeah.
Who are we when we show up? Who are we when we we want to be connected. And so one of the things that one of my acting teachers had said is, put your attention on the other person. That is interesting. Is when my focus is on the other person. And then I'm fully open to receiving and responding.
Yeah.
Rather than being in my head and what's the next line?
What's the next line? Yeah.
I want to position my body this way. Because again, that's not being truthful in the body.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You know, I have a background in athletics, all growing up, and played basketball through college, and I just noticed over and over, you can get stuck in your head during a game. You got the real game going on, but you can have another game going on in your head at the same time. And to the degree that's happening, it destroys what's happening in the real game. And I'd imagine it'd be the same thing in a soundstage, in a studio somewhere when you're filming something. If you're all stuck here and you got the thing happening, it's just not the same. Is if that's cleared away and there you're out in the space together, and here you go. It's a bit like, I think musically, an analogy sometimes I think in terms of you think of a note, a quarter note on a treble clef, and blow it up and make it massive, like it's as large as this room, the round part of the note. And the best musicians can get right to the center of that note. I mean, it's not enough to be on the right note. It's like you get right to the center of it. And if you get everyone who's attentive enough in an orchestra or a group, we're going to get into the center of that note together, right in the center. It's like the sound just, it explodes, the power of that note. It just is orders of magnitude. Even we were on script before. We played the right note before, but it wasn't the same it's like you got to love the note enough and love your fellow musicians enough that you're going to actually, and love the people you're playing the note enough for, you're going to have all those invitations bring you right to the core of it. And when that happens, when that happened in life, in any context, it's just the power.
Are you familiar with
feels
Benjamin
like
Sander?
Feels like flow, yes.
Yeah. Like water, going back to water. I played a little bit of basketball as well. And there's those games that you feel the difference.
Yeah.
And same on set, there's the different takes that feel different.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Wolfgang, you were saying something?
Benjamin Sander?
No.
He was a conductor. And is an example of what you just said. And he said, with 40, he realized, oh, I'm making no music. They make the music. So he shifted everything to lift the musicians up. And so I want that they have really the radiating eyes and the things. That was all his work. And he has on YouTube a little bit videos. And he became a kind of management teacher. How you do this with the team.
Yeah.
CEO, you're just the conductor, but the others play. Or the coach, and if you see football or whatever, who is on the field, and the coach is not on the field. So really get them to win.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can step out. Yeah. There's a documentary called The Master and His Pupil. Do either of you know that? It's a Russian conductor. I think he's leading the Rotterdam Philharmonic or something. And he has a few sort of up and coming maestros, right? He's training them. And it's a really fascinating, you can find it online if you just go to YouTube, put The Master and His Pupil, because the interaction is a bit similar, Wolfgang, what you're talking about here, but it's very relational in the sense he realizes, although he's not the one making the music, the people who are making the music are very much in response to him, right? So he is in the music in that regard, and how he allows that to happen, and how tiny a movement can be to actually communicate a thing, and how they'll be in response to it. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's another really cool. Have you seen My Octopus Teacher? Have you seen that movie, that documentary?
Yes.
Is that unbelievable, Elle? Isn't that something? Have you seen that, Wolfgang?
Relationship that forms between the man and the octopus.
It's a real relationship. There's real depth to it. It's really something down in south coast of South Africa, I think it was. Wow. So amazing. Yeah.
And I had a story, a preconceived story.
If you really go on the same level, you always have that. Yeah. IRS or whatever. So,
Yeah.
I had a preconceived story of what it would be about or my enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
And I think after the eighth person, I finally decided to sit down. I'm pretty sure there were tears because the relationship is just so innocent.
Yeah.
And it's witnessing each other. And then there's moments where, you know, the octopus wraps around the human and there's such a care and a tenderness, just to be in the same environment together without harm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really stunning, isn't it? I mean, yeah. Because there's so much in that case, both directions. You could feel fear, and we normally would. So we both retreat from each other. And yet there was, the encounter that opened between those two over a period of a year's time, like every day, was really something. But then also the whole story, between that octopus and her offspring, for example, all that's all relational too. When we get toward the end of the film, it's so beautiful. Recommend that, Wolfgang. Anyone else listening as well? It's worth the watch.
Yeah, sure. I believe, but somehow for me, it's always when I understood at that time, I don't know if you call it still different, the Arbinger pyramid. And we learned we're always focusing on the behavior level, the training or motivation.
Yeah.
And not in the end, on the way of being. Success, we talked about it outside network marketing, was always, I didn't care about motivation and training. So going down really, what is a way of being? And there are maybe CEOs who are afraid of getting the facade away or the title away.
Yeah.
But if you go to the way of being, and then I didn't see the film Octopus, but if I want to understand the being, my being and the others, then those things happen naturally.
Yeah. And the interaction of the being. It's sort of one of the things I get into in you and we is I try to, and in organizations, we bring this to bear, to think four-dimensionally in the sense that, as an individual, there's the things I do, my behaviors, there's my own internal sort of attitudes and beliefs and all those things, where I'm bringing those things to the table. And you're right. I think a lot of times maybe we don't go deep inside sort of on the individual side. But then you have on the collective side, you have, there's a thing too. A company is its own entity, and it has its own things you can see on the outside, which might be structure, systems, processes, for example. And then it's got its own inside collectively that has a big impact across a system, the community of a place, the culture of a place. So when you're thinking relationally and you're in an organization of any kind, part of the answer, the improvement answer is, okay, I'm going to think about what I'm doing behaviorally, and I'm going to think about what I'm doing, what you called it, the way of being level, Wolfgang. That's part of the answer. Part of the answer also is, what's happening in terms of our structure, our systems and processes? What are those inviting and rewarding, for example? How about the community of a place? How is it helping? Who feels like they belong? Who feels like they don't? All these things. If what a person does is they only focus on one of those dimensions, behavior, for example, and don't really pay attention to the rest, you can make some progress. It's just that you'll be capped, because anything you're doing in behavior change is going to be capped, held back by all the things that aren't being done in these other three dimensions. Same thing at the way of being level. I can be working on myself sort of in my own way of being, but if I'm not paying attention to also my own behaviors, but then also what are the systematic things that are having an impact on me and on others through a system, that's going to get capped too. So thinking, I think tricky problems, sophisticated problems require sophisticated thinking about them as well. And thinking about, four-dimensionally, what's getting in the way, what's helping is really a helpful frame for people.
I call it cybernetic 4.0, getting consciousness. But what do you think about this kind of picture I use for myself? And just simply my bottle. I have a liver. So what is the best? There's a liver cell. And the best is all liver cells have the possibility to live the best liver cell. How to organize that? but the liver cell needs a kind of liver leader or whatever, who organizes the liver can, or the liver cells can do the best. But the liver is somehow part, that's an
Of a larger system.
Organism.
Yeah.
So he needs to connect maybe with the kidney stuff and everything, and together, what is the whole Wolfgang, Jim, Elle, to do this? But then, this, what you just said, you're in a society, the town, and the family. So when we just come from our brain to really understand, and like maybe that's part of pausing also for transformation, or I need to go in double ways. I need to look outside. What is the society there? What is the complex? All the stakeholders. But then I need time to switch and look in the opposite direction. What do I need to do for all myself? And a lot of companies I see, at least, or maybe what we are dealing, they're not doing both. But those who do both, what often is so family-owned companies, there's so much more creating also the family in the company that they can do both, take care of the employees more than like the classical big companies where the CEO.
I'm smiling with family because there's other challenges that come with family-owned businesses as they scale up that are their own bucket of challenges.
They become bureaucrats, or they don't do the right decisions because they need to take care, or the elders and the young have different. It is different.
Yeah. Part of what I think, in the early days of a company when it's relatively small, and people are doing a lot of different things, and relationships are sort of informal because you're small enough to be, and people don't realize the heavy lifting that the informal relationships are actually doing for their results. But as you scale up, the connectivity of an organization is no longer supported by informal sort of systems. It's just too big anymore. And so you lose that strength, this thing that with this core. And a lot of, I see this all the time when people are going from small to medium size, they'll say, we're losing what we had. This wonderful culture we had, we're losing it. Yeah, because it was bound up in informal relational systems, and those will not hold up under the scale you have right now. You've got to be working very intentionally the relational fabric of this organizational system if you're going to retain and even improve on what you had before. But
is it just a bit
people
about
don't
size?
think that way enough. What's that?
Is it just the size? Well, my experience maybe is related to size, but when I talk with a doctor or whatever, or a couple, they met while they were students and everything, and the life was so different. And now he is a big boss of whatever, the famous surgeon or whatever, has money, but he works his ass off. And when you ask him what was the best time in your life, when we were students. Is this just because of size or title, or just they lost somehow themselves?
Yeah, well, I would say for me, even how you described it right there, Wolfgang, it's like sort of the relational fabric of life was a lot different when we didn't have the money and we didn't have all these things tearing at us. And partly what I might be longing for is a return to that. And that's what I'm saying is that we're relational beings. It's just who we are. It's inescapable. Someone might wish it weren't that way. It's nothing you can do about it. It's gravity. It's human gravity. So
then I would
getting the relational
thing, if it's the doctor or the company, we organize our life different. As a student, I have more time for other relationships. But then the more I focus on my career and how we do it there, okay, we do it there. Now we are going in a different mood and stop the healthy relational.
Have you studied like Dunbar circles and that kind of thing before? You know what I'm talking about when I say Dunbar circles? So Dunbar, it's a body of research that's really interesting. It actually, he gets at these insights by studying the size of the human brain, actually. But where it gets to is that there's something called the Dunbar number, which is 150. So you're saying basically a human system, once you get beyond 150 people, it becomes a totally different thing, because relationally it can't hang like it used to. And there's a series of concentric circles that started, like the first Dunbar circle is like at 2 people, then it's out to 5, and then it's out to 12, and and so you have the closer circle, you're more intimates, and then others, you're really good friends, and friends but not best friends, and then acquaintances, the further you go out. I think what happens is that look, we're time bound in this life, and so there is a limit to how many relationships you can be in at any depth. Now, there's no limit to relation itself. That's the fabric of existence. But in terms of relationships, there's sort of practical limits. And I think one of the things that might happen is that, whereas in the earlier days when we're younger, those Dunbar circles, the people who were closest, these are deeply meaningful relationships. We spend a lot of time with those people. And as we get older and we get deep into our careers, some things get inverted without realizing it. The people we end up spending most of our time with are no longer the intimates and other things. They're other people. So kind of some of the circles, the Dunbar circles, get inverted. And I think maybe we can feel like it thins out our life. So I think that's one thing to think about, is to pay attention to, who's loaded in my Dunbar circles, but also at each level to be connected within them. Because in a workplace, so these are folks, this isn't my spouse, maybe that I'm in a workplace, and it's someone else, but we work a lot together, and how the level of that relation is going to have a huge impact on my life quality and their life quality and the life quality of my family members when I bring my relational self home as well. So to get better at relation inside of each of those circles, I think is really important. But I do think we can lose our way a little bit on our relational allocations as we get swept up into the currents of life, professional life in particular. And I think a lot of times people will regret that later in life. The way you were talking about, it's like, they look back and say, I've made some mistakes that way.
That's why I would maybe come back to Elle's question, pausing transformation. Maybe it's not pausing transformation. Do we have enough pause to really always, but is it valuation and be aware what is really important for me in my life?
Yeah, that's what I think Elle was getting at. She didn't talk about pausing transformation. She talked about, what do we need to pause so that there can be transformation? Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's right. I think I think what you're
and not going into the trap. Oh, I need to meet those people, and there's the top 5 regrets. I have the wrong relationships because I was career orientated and not what is really for my true self important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this pause, am I on track? What is really important for me, or because we always did it in the company like that. Okay, let's go for the burnout.
Yeah. Those to stay conscious and be able to ask questions like that's really important. Yeah.
And then there's also how we organize it then.
Say yes when you can't say yes, Elle, you say?
Yeah, and say no when it's a no.
Yes.
Say no without guilt.
Yeah.
I had a really beautiful interaction actually yesterday, and I said, I have 20 minutes to be fully present with you. But then I need to shift my focus because there's other things that were filled within my day. And it was so freeing, because I know in the past I've created stories of like, oh, they're going to be upset, or that person's not going to like that time constraint. But what it did is it just gave us freedom. Gave us freedom for me to support my friend in the way she needed to be supported. And then I was able to transition and be fully present and complete the things that I needed to do.
Yeah, so it's beautiful.
Yes.
Really 20 minutes quality time.
Because in presence, there is no time, right? It's present. It's all present in presence. Yeah. So it's like, it seems like time is a constraint for presence or connection, but actually isn't at all. And so that 20 minutes is like massively rich, because it wasn't about time at all, it turns out. Yeah, that's a beautiful story.
When going back to pause for transformation, something I noticed for myself is I have I have beautiful practices that I've set up or tools, going to the sauna, going to my gym classes, meeting with friends, going to some type of art event, having quiet time. I found myself a little exhausted. And so what I noticed is while I was there, I might have not been fully present and I was thinking about something else or needing to do something else.
Yeah.
And so the shift for me or the new relationship has been, what do I need to do to be fully present in this moment? Maybe I need to take 3 seconds to jot something down so I don't forget it so that I can have this connection. And that has been a practice that I've been taking on the last couple of years. It's been a practice and it's brought me to that moment of pause for transformation because I'm fully available.
I like that. I like that. That's good.
I like also to turn it around. I feel, now I'm in a transformation, because transformation going a different frequency level means also the body is changing. Mm-hmm. And at the moment the body is changing and I feel that, pause, don't do anything. Let the body do it. It's like train hard and then stop, that the muscles can grow.
Yeah.
So that is a transformational process, to pause.
Yeah. I find on this topic of connection, Elle, like you were just talking about, and it'll be interesting. I want to test your experience with this too, and yours too, Wolfgang. My experience is when I'm really in connection, I actually don't get tired. It's actually invigorating. When I'm not in connection, I get exhausted. So I'm with groups all the time. I'm with, companies and executive teams and big groups and giving speeches, whatever. If I'm in connection with them, I'm energized. I don't come out tired, even if it was a 10-hour day. But if I'm just grinding, there's no connection and we're just grinding through the thing, it's a slog. It just wears me out. And so it's always a check a little bit for me is how present I actually was by whether I'm worn out or not. Because it almost seems like you would expect the opposite. Presence would like zap you. But at least for me, it's not that way for me. I'm curious for you. How do you experience it?
It's different.
I was thinking about this. So I love to have very healthy relationships, integrated relationships.
Yeah.
What I have learned is there are certain relationships where I love the person, but they don't have the access to me that they maybe used to.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting last night trying to figure out where does this fall under this, not necessarily wanting to label it bad or good. It's just how it is. And for me, I'm able, if I am in still some type of communication, it's at the capacity so that I don't feel depleted or drained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the boundaries. Yeah. It's the boundaries, right? There was a discussion in You and We around that with Rita. I don't know if you remember, between Rita and Ricardo when, around boundaries. Yeah. Yeah.
I think also
those are real situations.
What is your nature? What is your, like Sonnenburg called it, unique ability? What is your true essence? And when you have the essence of really being in connection, then you need to do it. But it's not because of the connection, because it's your nature. And if you do something what is against your nature, you can do it a while, but the energy goes. Because if you align with yourself, you can work with the so-called cosmic energy flows through you. And flow means energy is coming. You don't need to use your own battery. And I have more hard time. And I said also in the beginning, I'm happy that Elle is here, because he will ask totally different questions for connections, where I like to talk about principles. So I can stand on stage for thousands of people and share it and can do it for 10 hours.
Yeah.
But they have a problem because they need to sit there and listen.
Exactly.
But if I go after the speech and mingle with everybody and need to go in, I can be exhausted. So it's really the combination. I can't live without connections, but what is the dose and what is really my purpose? Like different flowers, one need to be in the night, grow in the night. Animals is different.
Yeah.
So if everything is really, if you know who you are, know thyself, then live that, and then you be in the flow.
Do you think that the quality to which we're energized or not energized is our body's way of communicating that we want more of that connection or we don't want more of that connection? Because there's also this business, I can't remember what business book this was, but the gentleman would have a lunch with whoever he was doing business with, potentially doing business. And the business deal going through was dependent on whether he digested the food or not.
Huh. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I
Really?
find out where that's from, but it's the premise of our body always knows.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting to me. I talk with my wife about this all the time because she's number one, she's brilliant. And she also has real somatic awareness in ways that I don't. I think I've spent a lot of time in my life just sort of ignoring my body. I mean, whether it's athletic or whatever, I'm just going to buzz through and do whatever. I'm not actually listening to the cues. She's so in tune with all of that. So I'm in the middle of learning so much from her about all of that. But that rings true to me. I mean, I get that the body knows things. I mean, it's a knowledge center too, right? And it's communicating things to us if we're paying attention. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And that's not something I've ever really understood before, but I'm learning it more.
Yeah, but in the English language, it's so great with ease and disease, no? Also dis-ease and disease.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So if you're at ease, you digest different. If tension is there.
Yeah, that's right. Elle, you were saying the follow-up to that too?
So the IU relation and having that in between, that bridge in between.
Yeah.
What it feels like in my body is I'm inhabited, I'm embodied so that I can be open to connection. Mm. And I'm curious if you could actually have that connection without having some type of connection to your heart space and connection to awareness of where I am.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Like I say, I'm sort of I'd say I'm a somatic rookie. So in terms of listening to the sort of the body part of me, so I'm not the best person to talk to about that. But I think my
what does it feel like for you?
So for me, so when I'm in that between, for me it's the sensation is the difference. I know I'm in between because of what I'm not experiencing when I'm not. And I'm so caught up in whether it's my own objectives, my own needs, my own, all of that stuff when I'm still stuck in that room that I write about in the book. Whereas when I'm out in the between, with another person, all that goes away. It's not that I don't have objectives or all those concerns, but that is not the locus. That's not where I'm focused anymore. It isn't. It's this thing that's happening right here. It's alive right here. And stuff's happening in my body and other places, but I'm actually, in my case, some people who are more aware that way, it sounds like it's probably different. For me, I'm not keyed into that so much. It's just right. It's just here in the space. It's immediate. It's the back and forth. It's all of that. Now that shows up in energy and all kinds of things, but I'm not, at least myself, not thinking of it in terms of, oh, wow, there's the energy. It's sort of like anytime I'm doing that, I'm like popping right back into my head again. It's like, and there's times to pop back in my head, but when I'm right in the connection, that's not what's happening for me in those moments. I think Buber would say, that's why he said, and this is something I misunderstood about Buber for decades because I never really had studied him. So when I started to read and really study him, I realized I'd misunderstood his work, like foundationally misunderstood it. And he wasn't saying that, he has I, it, and I, you, or I, thou, those two. He wasn't saying one's good and one's bad. He's just saying they're different modes. And, whenever we're in our heads, experiencing others out there, we're what he calls I, it. Doesn't mean it's wrong. There's a lot of good things that can happen in our heads. It's just that that's not the same as being actually an immediate relation, which is the I-you relation. And the problem is the more we get stuck only doing I, it, we can lose both the awareness that other possibilities and the ability to get there. I don't know if you've read Ian McGilchrist's book, The Master and His Emissary, for example, and then his follow-up about that. But his fascinating British scholar, and his work really comes out of left brain, right brain sort of work, and it's deeply relational in his insights. But I think Buber's saying, look, we can have an in the moment interaction, which is totally IU. There's compress, converge, emerge, all that's happening. We're making water. And then I'll go back that night and I'll think, oh, I had that conversation, that thing with Wolfgang, that was amazing. Or boy, that meeting with Elle, that was incredible. Now I'm in my head because I'm in my memories about it. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that's not the same thing as having been there in the moment when it was happening. And so we experience both of those, necessarily so. And I think Buber would say humanity's better off. Any social organism is better off if we can open more space for the IU kind of meeting than we're currently opening. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you need to be in the presence. And then for me, the logic is that's the only way where we really can live. And somehow it doesn't really matter if there's someone else there, but there we need to be there. And I guess as well, some people who make these sort of free climbing or whatever, they need to be such in the presence. Yeah, to be really in the presence, you're not allowed to think something else, because we can't go in the past, we can't go in the future. We can, in the present, think about the past or the future, and there we trick us all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
but even like
our super plans trick themselves, or the subconscious doesn't understand what is true or not true. Like you said, we have. Even in sports, we can have different games or whatever in the head. And to really learn to be totally present and live from the total presence. And what doesn't matter what it is, what your nature is, that's key. Or Eckhart Tolle said, the power of now. Huh?
Yeah, that's the flow you're talking about, Elle, right?
Yes.
I mean, flow happens in presence.
Flow.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the present.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
the body, I'm looking at the relational work. And so if I'm to bring obstruction, and this is, tying in my craft to this, obstruct, and it is animosity and distrust. And so I bring that, like, what is that? If I'm to craft that character, what does that feel like in my body?
Yeah.
I probably start tensing here.
Yeah.
If I'm engaging in life within that type of relation, my body gives me a cue of how I'm actually interpreting this. And so, okay, take that out. And now I'm in resist. And so what does that feel like? And then I go up to compounding, and there we have consideration and we have trust. Well, trust immediately drops my shoulders away from my neck. My abdomen loosens. My jaw loosens. And I'm open at the heart. And so there's a different somatic experience within each of these levels. And then even there's this, when we go to offering your due.
Yep. Love
this principle. So space, horizontal, behold and open. And behold really resonated with me. There's, in one of my practices, we call it Ubuntu. And Ubuntu is connection to awe. And so we walk around in this connection to awe. Until it inhabits us. And that changes the type of character that we are in that moment. We create statues in that character. I think, we can be talking about the same thing, but because we have different lenses, we come at it with different language and different experience.
Yeah, I love all that. Some of my colleagues, like including I mentioned my wife, she's my business partner as well. She's brilliant. So, and some of my other colleagues at Withy, they actually do somatic work with groups around each of the levels, just as you did. Put people in groups, and what do we feel like? What happens to us physically at each of these levels? Just the way you've been mapping it out there. I think it's brilliant. I think so helpful, because it can be that can be a way that can wake us up. Wait, I can notice what's happening in my body right now. Well, what does that mean? That happens more typically at this sort of level of relations. It's a super helpful thing to notice. That's never been how I've noticed it before, but that's a weakness on my part. It's a muscle I'm trying to strengthen, actually, that way of noticing, because others of my colleagues, they're totally dialed into that, just the way you are. Exactly.
But
Yeah.
somehow it is, and here comes a question from your experience, the right balance. Ideally, in a company, in an organization, there's not only room for it, we supported it because I believe then everything goes more smooth and flow in the company.
Yeah.
But that is not isolated. Then there are others. There's a competition, or what we see at the world now, the separation, the fighting, there is war. So how you work or suggest for a company who comes somehow in the survival also, really have the balance to be totally inside in the relation for customers or whatever, also with stakeholders in relation, but also strong enough to deal with competition.
Well, I think, I mean, in my experience, that's how you get strong enough to deal with competition, is you get relationally massively skilled across your system, because there's a relational, I think of it, I mentioned before, I really am into quantum physics. But I mean, there's like you might think of a relational field. There's a relational field across a system.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can, the more you can strengthen that relational field, the more that system can take on successfully together, the more they can actually, dig in and actually do difficult things. So for me, we do a lot of strategic work with organizations, in our work with Withy, and getting really, and people see that, the leaders see this. Oh my word, if we can right now we're at a 0.4 on average across the system on a scale from -2 to 2. If we can get up to a 1 on average, what would that mean in terms of what we could do in the marketplace? It's enormous. If we get to a 1.5, I mean, forget about it, what's possible. So when you can start to see that and track it and then work towards it, you can see where you're at, you can game plan where you want to go. It's a huge competitive move.
When you say strategic work, what is it for you? Because I experience it, we need a strategy, and then they make a kind of from my point of view, an illusionary plan. Yeah, and the whole organism is not really involved. The relationships are not really there.
Yeah.
Focus. So how do you do this?
So we have a process for strategic planning, among other things, that sort of emerges out of this. But it's not so much. I mean, you build a strategic plan, but you can build it relationally or not. And so if you're involving people in the right kind of ways, so that what's being built isn't someone like the thinker's plan at the top who's going to push the plan down to the doers and say, now you guys execute on this. That just creates resistance and lack of accountability through the system, right? I mean, the doers say it's a lousy plan, and the planners, thinkers think I've got terrible executors. Yeah. So if relationally you bring people across the system into that process, then it's all of their plan. They own the plan, and they can morph the plan. They're empowered to be a living plan.
They can morph the plan.
Yeah, it's a living plan. So that's, I mean, that's a very high level way of stating what we're doing in the strategic thinking space. But it's just, if you tackle business individualistically versus relationally, you get to different places. You just do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but just recently, it was, I guess, even a special consultant for strategy. He said, well, we need to make a strategy. If we don't have a strategy on the board, the people will not follow us. So it's just we create an idea and everybody should follow, but not involved. Huh?
Yeah, that won't work. That won't go very well.
Won't work, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think in the future, less and less, because the younger generation is already different. They have different brains. You don't get them with the same, or whatever, incentive than 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're looking for a different way of life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Now it's nearly 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Jim.
That's crazy.
Yes. But it's, I know you're busy and I have to move on. Just give us just also, you mentioned the academy or whatever you're doing, people who are interested to follow you or contact you.
Yeah.
Everybody should read the book, or even all other books as well, but especially this one. Where should they go if they want to study more of this?
Yeah. So, yeah, a few different places. I mean, they can go to our website at withy.com. That's withy with 3 I's.
Yes.
If you happen to put 2 I's in there, it'll still
we
get
will
you
put it
there.
in.
It's 3 I's. And then, or the you and we, I mean, you could also, I mean, youandweacademy.com. They can join the community that's emerged around this book and all the stuff that's happening around it. That's really exciting. You know, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, so you can reach out and connect with me there as well, and others on the Withy team for that matter.
Yeah. And you're on LinkedIn and all those ones. So we will put this link also, if it's okay. So,
yeah, please. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Elle, what is now your, for the ending of this talk, relational question? I always come with the intellectual stuff here, but so we're talking about relations. So what's the most important question for you now?
Generally, I lead with it. But what I want to ask, and this is for each of you, what is it that you are most proud of in the last month? And if you want, what has been the most hard? Because we got to keep it real.
What was the second? The most
hardest thing.
Hardest,
challenging. Yeah. If you want to share, it's just I want to be mindful that that's where some people might be.
Mm-hmm.
Wolfgang?
Yeah. Elle, you know, we're talking about it, and you even kicked me in the process. So I'm starting a TikTok channel to share the process I'm going through, because I decided to get rid of everything what I have. Here, moving out, giving out the house, everything. So what I can call a kind of transformation, get rid of everything what I have, old memories stuck. I don't want to stuck in the past. So it is really be as open as possible for the next level. So I'm proud that I do this and go through this, partly at the moment emotional. You know, that was my Beatle record I had, and I carry it with me now 40, 50, even longer years. I bought it when I was a student. Can I give this? And said, no, it's all stuff. It's not me, and I don't know what's the next level. And the hardest is really not just letting go everything, to really go in the process, like the caterpillar. I know I do this now, but I have no clue what will come out. So really going through something, just being ready for next connection relations, and then I have no clue what water is, what butterfly is, and everything. Really go for it and trust the process. And that is, for someone who likes to be left-braining and system thinking, not the easiest.
It's a big move.
Call it the hardest part. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, having read just Siddhartha, finished it last night, I'm like, you're living that life, right? In that book right now. He did that a few times. So for me, I would say, Elle, let's start with the difficult thing first. Right now, the thing that's hardest for me is this is a tough place. The country's in a really tough situation right now. There's just so much acrimony, and that's hard. I think it's hard to escape it. And it's hard you don't necessarily want to escape it necessarily. You want to stay connected to what's going on too. So that's just an ongoing challenge, trying to figure out how to think about it, what to do about it, all of that. Something I'd say I'm most proud of over the last month is the team that's come together at Withy, that really came out of, the book coming out and everything, just the people who raised their hands and said, I want to be part of this team. We have this unbelievable team that's actually international, of folks that, leaders in all the areas of the business that's just emerged. It's amazing. We don't deserve the level of folks that have actually decided, yeah, we're doing this together. And so that's a thrill. So, and that's all been coming together. I mean, sort of, Andrea, you mentioned earlier, she actually joined us a year ago. Just after reading the manuscript, she joined our team. But we have a whole bunch of other folks have come on board. It's just amazing. So it's a really exciting time for us. And yeah, that's been fun.
I very much echo your heart. I find myself, Wolfgang and I have had multiple conversations on this, and I find myself wanting to be informed, but also understanding that my joy, and nurturing myself and educating myself outside of what's showing up is part of the activism.
Yeah.
That's been hard. The proud, honestly, it's being in community with the friends that I have at the moment. I mean, I have different points where there was friendship breaks and moving to different cities. And so to just be in communion with the people, I was really reflecting on that the other day. So I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for sharing so much.
Yeah, real pleasure. Yeah.
Very much, and I hope we could give somehow the idea it might be now the so-called 11th hour. So it's most dark before sun is there again, and the old systems logically are fighting for that. But there's so much, like you just said, people coming and want to join. There's so much good starting, and especially on the duality level, you have the same amount of good. So it's the question where we put our focus.
Yeah.
And it will come. It will come. Yeah. And thank you for your work. And it can obviously, now I watched it somehow from a distance for 25 years. It's really incredible. You can connect what I've tried to learn now with Elle's help a little bit better. And I love this. And it's interesting also, I gave your book to some clients, send it as a Christmas present. And how some say, they say thank you, but some still have the challenges also really to dive into it. And those who do it, like Elle did the relationships, I did it with their people, it really changes a lot what you then see in the relation and how the team starts to work. And that is the next level that they organize. Everybody dreams of this self-learning system, agile, say in English, agile system company. And we're going there more and more. And that's beautiful. And thank you for your work and your optimism and sharing. Yeah, and like you say, the best is yet to come. And if it's out there, we don't want to go on a spooky illusion here. Oh, everything will be fine. No, this way I like to close with get real, but work for the ideal.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jim, I have to say that the book, it really amplified the hope that I have. With people being in relationship to each other. And through this fictional story that was told, sharing the concepts, you addressed questions that I had. You addressed reasons for me to possibly, I don't want an answer that is just a blanket answer. I want to actually talk about the minutia and talk about the challenges we're having. And you do that in this book. Yeah. And I'm really appreciative of your approach. So thank you for being in your gift and writing this and giving it to us, a framework that we can actually
thank you for reading it so deeply and openly. Yeah. I think it gives me hope too. I can see pathways forward, through our most difficult challenges, whether they be corporate or societal or interpersonal. I see it. And so, I want to be of whatever help I can be in those difficult things, those difficult situations. And this book is part of that for me. It's like, here's a way to think about what's happening in all the various parts of our life and what could happen and how we could actually get there. So I hope it speaks to people widely the way it's speaking to the both of you.
Thank you so much. And
pleasure. Thank you both.
we will put also the link in where to order the book, and may more and more people get it.
Yeah.
Have so much joy living it. Thank you, Elle, very much for your questions and feelings and presence, and Jim, just simply for the wonderful work you are doing and the
thank you, Wolfgang. Thank you as well, Elle. Great being with you both today. Okay. Let's do it again sometime. Yeah.
Yes. Very much.
Okay.
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 Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah.